This is what a broken man looks like. A man who has fought destiny for so long that he had to eventually cave and realize this is just who he is. We're doing another Five Nights at Freddy's video. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm the Thesterninator, but my friends call me... Welcome to the channel. While you're here, don't forget to drop down below and like, comment, subscribe, do all the stuff that makes me and YouTube happy, and let's hop into it. So in my time on YouTube, I've done not one, not two, not three, but 9 Five Nights at Freddy's videos. And while I think that may be enough, here I am, yet again.
You won't let me live. You won't let me die. The world needs you.
And while we've gone through a lot of characters, I still know that there are some left out. It reminds me of a story, one that I can't quite recall at the moment, something about a guy pushing a rock up a hill for all of eternity, and that got me thinking, there is a character who we've forgotten. These three, in fact. They've had instances in almost every single game, if not every game, even taking a major part in Help Wanted 2 as a mini-game. So I decided if I'm going to do more characters, I want to start with these guys. They're pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but I wanted to zhuzh them up a little bit, make them a little bit more exciting, give them that Pokemon factor. So I went in and decided, okay, what if this wasn't just a Pokemon? What if it was something more, something bigger, something more tangible? These characters, if I can call them that, these staples of the franchise, are such a big part of what we've seen. They've been this anchor that has persisted throughout all of the games, even having larger parts, like I said, in Help Wanted 2, as well as the other side games. So I wanted to give them a little bit more personality, beyond just a single, simple design. It is still a simple design, but I wanted to play with it. And for those of you who've been watching for a while, you know how much that I love my inanimate object type Pokemon, so I thought a paper doll would be a ton of fun. A paper doll Pokemon is actually one of the first ones that I ever posted on my Instagram, back when I started this whole venture of just drawing Pokemon, mixing them with stuff, making them a little bit weird and kooky, so it was familiar. It felt like home. So I went in, decided I want to keep these kind of crimped edges to the paper, and started doing this pattern that I would utilize to give the face a little bit more texture, make it feel like a paper plate. Some may say it looks a little bit like a clock. I think it looks like the weird indentations on the ends of paper plates that I'm not certain what they're there for, but they're important to the idea. I also wanted to do, and I've wanted to do this for a long time in drawings, this weird scribbly face. I got so addicted to drawing this type of face that I end up carrying it over into a couple more concepts that you'll see, as well as just adapting it to some of the new shading techniques that I've been playing with on a couple different versions of Pokemon. I'm currently working on a collab that's going to be coming out in a couple of weeks now, and this kind of saved my bacon in how to make something feel just a little bit more textured. But for this one, I loved it. I think that it made it colorful and made it fun and got me the opportunity to play with that sketchy pattern. In fact, I named this Pokemon Sketchy, the homemade Pokemon. The shiny is subtle, because you know how I love my subtle shinies, and while it's not the most powerful Pokemon in the stack, it definitely has something going for it in the way of what it becomes. But before we can get to what it becomes, I want to talk about a different Pokemon. This guy. I designed this back in one of our earliest Five Nights at Freddy's videos. It's a Pokemon named Soluna, and is supposed to be a representation of Sun and Moon in Security Breach. You guys loved this design, even making your own fan art and making fixes to issues that I hadn't caught. So I decided, why not give it an evolution? I went in and knew I don't want to affect this too much. I don't want to stray away from the design of Sun. So I made it kind of almost a one-for-one. I know that breaks some of my own rules, saying these designs should never be a one-for-one, but it's already such a fun character and truly one of my favorite parts of Security Breach that I wanted to keep a lot of those ideas. I do decide to change up some things here and there, but ultimately I wanted it to feel almost Mr. Mime-esque. It has something to it that is off-putting, and maybe that's just how humanoid it looks at the outset. I don't know, it ended up being really fun. I got to play with those shading techniques some more, and it was nice to draw just a happy little sun character. I really dig him, and I think that I was able to change enough that it doesn't feel 100% like Sun, but you still get the point across. I was actually in a chat with a couple other artists recently where we were talking about how a concept of a character, specifically a Five Nights at Freddy's character, is made to look like Five Nights at Freddy's and like Pokemon, and how often you fall to one side or the other. It's a weird balance, and something that I've discovered in that conversation is that people who like Five Nights at Freddy's art and people who like Pokemon art kind of want two different things in these mashups. Pokemon people want to be surprised. You want to have something that maybe wasn't what you were thinking, something that is new and different from where your initial thought process went for a design. For example, I did an ice poison type and decided I want to go something really weird, something different, so I made a Greenland shark. That is very outside of the box of I think what you'd go for. But Five Nights at Freddy's fans with this type of art necessarily don't want to be surprised. They want to know the character. They want to understand the character at the outset. And I'm speaking in generalization here, but it tends to be the case. If I made something that didn't look like the character from Five Nights at Freddy's, but felt inspired by it, I'd have a lot of people saying, you did it wrong. But if I have a character that looks very Pokemon, and also very Five Nights at Freddy's, I'll have people saying, that's just a Five Nights at Freddy's character. You did it wrong. Regardless, you're going to have people who say, hey, this isn't designed the way that I think it should go, or that could have been done differently. And at this point in my career of YouTube, I've kind of had to learn to block out the you should haves. My brain kind of glosses over the comments of you should have done this, should have done that. I'm happy with this design. I'm happy with a lot of my designs. I really wouldn't put them in videos if I wasn't. But I always see where there's areas of inspiration, areas that things can be adjusted or fixed. I talk about my old Instagram where I post Pokemon art a lot on these videos, and the reason is because it's good to revisit those pieces. I look at them and say, I've learned so much since then, and it's so interesting to look back and not get cringe over my art, but to look back and say, wow, I have changed a lot of my tactic on these things. Maybe I'll love this today, look back on it in a year and say, I really need to revisit that design. That actually was a conversation I had with myself for this video. I'm running out of ideas for characters. Maybe I should just go back to the ones that I've already done and redesign them. But it hasn't been long enough yet. They're still a little too precious to me, so I went against it. So this is Salafter. You'll notice the name also almost looks like Slaughter. It is the Morning Sun Pokemon, and for the shiny, I wanted to incorporate some of those moon aspects, so they'll switch off between one another. Because if you do sun, you kind of have to do moon, right? Hi, I'd like to take a minute to talk about our sponsors. It's me. For those of you unaware, I have a second channel. That channel hosts card pack openings. I've done Surging Sparks, Obsidian Flame, Stellar Crown, all sorts of stuff. And we have a lot of extra stuff coming to that, including a bunch of giveaways. There's actually a giveaway going on right now. All you have to do is like, comment, subscribe on that second channel, which is linked in the description below, and you could be able to win, actually this. The Infernate V-Box. This will get sent to you with extra goodies outside of the box, those being some cards that I've pulled, maybe commissions, I don't know, all sorts of stuff, still playing it out. But you can get in on that by joining the second channel, liking, commenting, subscribing, down in the description. And if you want to be a part of the community a little bit more, just overall for both channels, you can find us at the Discord, which is also down in the description. There's tons of good stuff there. So I'll see you in the Discord, and I'll see you on the second channel. Back to whatever it was we were doing. What we were doing, me from 20 minutes ago, is talking about moon. We just finished drawing sun, and I want to get into moon. You can't have one without the other. And while I do stray away a little bit from time to time on some of the designs, moon is pretty straightforward. I really like the concept of the character, and he was, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, the most terrifying part of that game. I'd be walking around having a great time in Security Breach, doing my thing, feeling like I understand all the rules and how to survive, and suddenly those stars would appear and things would get a little bit dimmer, and the panic would return, and I'd be running, looking for Freddy, looking for a charging port, looking for something, cowering within that our Freddy robot friend as if it were my dad and I was scared of the mascot at the Chuck E. Cheese pizzeria or whatever. I was a kid again, terrified of this mascot. Very, very, very well did this character get that feeling across, retranslate and recontextualize the fear of mascots. For me, at least, in a world where we've kind of become used to them, I think Five Nights at Freddy's, we've come to know how scary they could be. And when you come to know how scary something is supposed to be, it loses a lot of its fear factor. So this guy really reinvented it for me when I played. Night was terrifying, especially since I continuously thought that I was done and rid of him, and suddenly he'd become a problem again. So designing this character, I wanted to capture that fear, and so I wanted to keep it pretty close to what his initial design was, but play with a couple things to give it a little bit more Pokemon energy, giving it that wisp of hair that is that hat, and then kind of simplifying the star shapes on the pants. I also wanted to put him in a very dynamic pose, which I'm trying to get better at, if I'm being honest with you guys. I'm trying to learn how to do that a little bit more. Characters standing up facing 3/4 to the left or to the right is great, and it's wonderful, but I want to be able to differentiate these stances, so having him kind of float like this, I think works. And one of the gripes that I gave myself on this was I'm going to lose a lot of the detail that you'd see on the chest. But something that I learned a long time ago, I don't even recall who said it or where I heard it, but I remember taking it from somebody, and I tell myself this when I'm drawing all the time, is sometimes your favorite parts are going to be covered up. That's okay. Sometimes the section that you worked really hard on is going to be covered, because that's just the nature of the beast with these things. We don't live in the 4th dimension, so we don't get to see all 3 dimensions of this creature, but I wanted to capture that pose. And so losing a little bit of the detail on the chest so that I could get that pose across, I think was worth it. It really gives this character a whole vibe in how he's floating with his hands so menacingly dangling down like a marionette. So I think it works, and I'm happy with it. Maybe I'll revisit at some point and do the full body. But for the moment, this is Lunanag. Lunanag's name, much like Solafter, is soul and laughter. His name comes from Luna and Nag, that nagging and persistent fear that I had in the back of my mind, that this guy could just be spider crawling across the ceiling over me at any time. The shiny, I wanted to get that sun color, and yeah, he's terrifying. When coming up for an evolution for Sketchy, I thought about different kids' drawings, and how throughout even the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, they carry a lot of weight. They become this way that the kids are able to interact with this other world, with these spirits, as well as in the real world, how kids see the world. It gives us an insight into their little corner of the universe. And I thought that's kind of perfect for the evolution of this character. So I went in and thought, well, when a kid's drawing something, they usually draw what they see, but it's warped and changed in a different way. Maybe it's because they can't capture the 3-dimensionality of something, or maybe it's because certain aspects are more important to them than others. A character may be drawn with arms way too long, or legs way too short. And I thought about that, and how in the Pokemon universe, what would kids be drawing? Well, they'd be drawing Pokemon. And what if by drawing these Pokemon, these ghostly, spirity Pokemon, they in some ways summoned them? If by drawing certain images on their sketchy Pokemon, one that I picture loves to have kids just scribble a new face on it, they summon something else. It's evolving it in a new and different way. I think that'd be a fun mechanic, actually. We had the digging underground, we had the dream world, we've had all these different mechanics and weird things for Pokemon. What if you could draw on this Pokemon and design it? And by doing so with certain ways, you could evolve it. So I thought about a warped and changed ghost Pokemon, specifically Spiritomb. What if a kid drew this thing and, by drawing it, summoned it into reality? So I went in, used this painter, sketchy, crayon type texture to kind of give it that look, that it was a kid's drawing brought to life, and got to go in and keep a lot of those same ideas that I played with in the previous version in the sketchy form to give it a little bit of personality, make it look like Spiritomb, but also not look like Spiritomb, utilizing scribbles and signs and things that kids would draw to create that aura that floats around it. I really like it. I think it's a ton of fun. So I called it Sketchatomb. It is the homemade Pokemon, still a normal ghost type. And while its total is about where Spiritomb's is, I feel like the abilities between this Pokemon and its counterparts would really be where it stands out as different. So let me know down in the comments what abilities you think these Pokemon should have as we go through them. Next up is a different drawing. What if a kid drew something just a little bit different? Another Pokemon, a different Pokemon, and its spirit came to life much as the other. Whereas our Sketchatomb is a crumpled up piece of paper, maybe a drawing that was forgotten or discarded, didn't come out the way the kid wanted. What if this one was the opposite? It was put up on the fridge, multiple pictures all spread out over a wall, with the love of a child caring for them so much, enough that they wanted to display them, that it came to life on its own. That all of these images and scribbles kind of brought themselves together, realigned themselves to create something else. So I thought about Runerigus, and Runerigus has this whole vibe to it of these ghostly arms, very, very similar to Cofagrigus and how that all works out. So I wanted to do that and make it work out here with that Cofagrigus, Runerigus type of design, but what if it was drawn by a kid? What if a kid drew this Pokemon and it came to life? I keep saying that. I know I keep reiterating stuff that I've already said about these designs. I'm just, as an artist, so in love with the idea of a Pokemon made of drawings. Like, Pokemon is what I do. Drawing is what I do. Ghost-type Pokemon are just inherently cool. So what if I brought all of those things together to create these creatures? It's fascinating and a fun example. Let me know, if this happened, would you work really hard to try and get one of these Pokemon? Would you just be scribbling over plates and papers to catch something like Sketcherigus? Sketcherigus's name comes from Sketch and Runerigus. Its shiny is a bluish green, just using a different crayon color. Its stats are about where Runerigus's are, and I dig them. It's so fun. I looked at this for a long time after I'd finished drawing it. And now we move on to our final one here. Not so much a picture, as much as what I assume would be left in an abandoned pizzaplex like this one. You know, whenever you go to a party or you go out to a family gathering, you have your cups, you have your soda, you have all your stuff, and there's always a rule, right? There's always the idea. Write your name on your cup. That way everyone knows that one's yours. Is your family like that? Do you guys do that? I know we do that. You write your name on the cup so everyone knows that that is yours. I am the guy who always kind of played with that idea and thought, well, you're not really looking for whose name is on the cup. You're just looking to see if it's not your name. So I would always write "not yours" on my cup. I thought it was funny. No one ever once laughed, but I still continue to do it to this day because it's kind of a joke for me. But I thought about that here and thought about a kid maybe taking their paper plate sketchy and drawing on it, but then going and getting a little bit more crafty. Well, not only is it a plate, what if I instead make it into something? What if I get a cup? What if I get some glue? What if I get some glitter? And throwing that all around, mixing it together to create this whole new type of thing. And I thought, who better to solidify this idea than Sinistea? You may be asking yourself, what about Poltegeist? Well, I figure with a kid, it would be something smaller. It would be something more diminutive. I could absolutely do Poltegeist for this design, but I wanted it to be a cup. I wanted it to be something simple, something small. Plus, it's not supposed to be a regional variant. It's a Pokemon that just happens to look a lot like that Pokemon, attained a different way. In this case, it's also filled with paint and color and all those other arts and crafts that were used to bring it to life. So this is Sinistea, still the homemade Pokemon, still normal ghost, just waiting to see what you guys think up in the comments for abilities for these type of Pokemon. That's one of my favorite parts about these videos, is getting to interact with you guys and see how you can help me complete these Pokemon. Because I'm terrible at abilities, but you guys are really good at them. Well, that's our characters for this video. You may find yourself asking, hey, where's Roxy? Where's Monty? Where's Bonnie? Where's Chica? Where are all these other characters? Well, check out the other videos in the playlist that I've built specifically for the Five Nights at Freddy's stuff. This is video 10, so there's enough stuff to get you through there for the next couple hours, let's be honest, hours at least, and come back here when you're done. Tons of great stuff. I've been working on these videos for a long time, and I'll say this, one of the reasons that I wanted to do the Five Nights at Freddy's video today is because there actually won't be a Wednesday poll video like normal. I'll be out of town, so check out this video, like it, comment it, subscribe it. Thank you guys so much for your support, and you know where to find me. Before we go, I want to give a shout out to all of my supporters across Patreon and Ko-fi. You guys are what make these videos possible, but I want to give a special thank you, a special Big McThankies from McSpankies to Kaylin Cat, Soren Frost, Sticks TV, Jesse Badger, Teacup Cryptid, Dan Bush, Tony F, and Ko-fi supporter throughout the Ko-fi and the Patreon. You guys are some of our top tier supporters, and I want to thank you guys for being here. Thank you so much for your support. As well as, before we go, I want to remind everyone of my event going on. That is our Multiversal Drift event. Really proud of this. It's really fun. I'm super excited. We've already seen a ton of artists actually jump on board with this. The idea is, think of a universe where something happened differently in the Pokemon world. How would that affect things? Maybe Team Aqua won and now the world is completely flooded. What would it look like for Pokemon to adapt to that new world? What if humanity and Pokemanity evolved in the Distortion realm instead of on Earth? What would those Pokemon and trainers look like? How would they function? Come up with a little bit of a story and a design that goes with it, and make sure that you tag that, whether it be on X, Blue Sky, YouTube, community, on my Discord or Instagram, with Stern Multi Drift. That's hashtag Stern Multi Drift. That way I can find your stuff. And at the end of the months, January, February, and March, I'll do a video where I showcase some of my absolute favorites. And I'll say this, there are already some of my absolute favorites in some of the posts. So see if you can knock them down and take their spot. Sounds like you know where to find me, and I hope that you know where to post your stuff. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!